Good afternoon. My name's Charlie Hunt from UCFB, and today I'm joined by who some would argue is the face of European cricket at the moment, Vinny Sandhu, aka Mr. Maximo. Vinny, thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk to me. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thanks, Charlie. It's great to be sitting down with you, and I'm looking forward to having a chat.
Lovely. So we'll get into a very simple question. Well, some would say a simple question. Obviously, to those who aren't aware what the European Cricket Network is, how would you describe it to someone who isn't sort of and have any knowledge on European cricket?
Well, European cricket is kind of the developing part of the cricket world at the moment. So due to immigration patterns, there's been a large influx of players, and it's kind of changed the landscape of cricket in Europe over the last 10 years in particular. There always has been cricket to some extent in most parts of Europe, but with the kind of demographic trends, there's been more cricket played. And over the last couple of years in particular, the European Cricket Network has provided a vehicle to show that cricket around the world. It's a little bit different because of the nature of some of the facilities and somewhat arguable lower standard because of the nature of the players and their backgrounds. The fact it's not a professional pursuit as yet. The European Cricket Network has found a bit of a niche with the format that has been developed, a very fast-paced format. It's a different take on cricket. It's not your grandfather's cricket. And so we've actually broadcast over 1,000 matches in 2021. And yeah, it's a really unusual and exciting broadcasting platform for what is actually quite an old game.
Sure. I mean, yeah, you mentioned there obviously the 1,000 matches over the last year. Obviously, it's probably taken you to some corners of Europe that you probably would never experience. What's sort of been the highlight for you the last year over those 1,000 matches?
I think the highlight has been the fact that we're constantly moving. That in itself is a highlight, and the fact that we're constantly making incremental improvements in what we're doing because media is changing. The way that media is consumed is changing over the last, I guess it always is, but in particular, that's been accelerated with the advent of streaming over the last few years. And people are then choosing from almost an infinite array of things. So, I mean, what the places I've really enjoyed, I mean, I'm very partial to Spain. I'm trying to pick up Spanish over my travels as kind of a second language. So I always enjoy going there, and I've spent a fair bit of time there. I'm not that good as yet. I think
I'm sure Rico's helping you out in that base, though.
Yeah, Rico is somewhat helpful with that. I really enjoyed going to new places that we haven't been before, like Croatia and Greece recently. I've been up to Sweden, another country I hadn't been to before. But apart from that, really everywhere I go, I've really enjoyed it. I think Prague was beautiful. I think going to Malta was really nice. And I think I've also enjoyed seeing these countries as they have slowly been working their way through the pandemic and all the changes, I guess, that have taken place over the last couple of years to kind of slowly see in real time the situation improving has also probably been a highlight for me.
Sure. And obviously, with yourself within the European Cricket Network, you're obviously one of the leading commentators, but along with that, you're sort of head of media as well. What sort of work do you do that's, behind the scenes that not the casual viewer would obviously not see? What sort of work do you do that, we wouldn't be aware of?
Yeah, well, as head of media and as part of the management team, there's an overall strategy about how we present this product to the world because it's unprecedented what we're doing. So there's no template for what we're doing. No one's ever done, well, it'll be something like 1,200 cricket matches in a year. So as head of media, my main role, I think, is to organize that information into an easy to understand package for people. So it's no good just having matches left, right, and center, here, there, everywhere. We're here, we're there. It's communicating what might be obvious to us on the inside as insiders in the management team. We know we have this tournament, this tournament, this tournament, but to have consistency across the tournaments we're doing, to have a certain standard upheld in all of the tournaments that we're doing, and then to have certain processes that take place no matter if a tournament is in Sweden or Germany or Italy or whatever's happening. It has to be consistent. So that was my main challenge at the start of this year when I really got my teeth stuck into this was, okay, what can we replicate and what resources do we need to make sure that the match preview article goes on the website in time, that we have the fantasy information for people that are playing fantasy cricket, and within the broadcast, what sort of structures. So I think I had a bit of a strategy using my experience, that I wanted to do half of all the ideas I had because I wanted to get those nailed down and slowly improve, because there's a lot of things that we can do. For example, things like interviews with players is more possible now, interviews with coaches, but because of the fast-paced nature of it, there's not a break in the day. So our matches basically have 2-hour time slots, and the matches go about an hour and 3/4. So by the time we finish the broadcast, we normally go 5 minutes over. That takes us to 10:02. And then we start the new match 5 minutes before. So already you've got 5 minutes in there. So it's kind of picking and choosing what I think our viewers want to see and what they prioritize. And then also using the data from, we know how many people are watching and when they turn on, when they turn off. So just using our resources cleverly to get the most out of our day and not to be wasting energy. So that's been one of the things which is my behind the scenes I'm always working on, is how do we present what we're doing to the world in a way that it's not intimidating and they feel like they can understand. And for example, you can say things once, twice, 3 times, but you have to really be consistent and on message and on brand. And our branding is something we've really worked on hard this year. We have a head of branding now. And so, for example, the ECC, which was the European Cricket Championship, that was our flagship tournament this year. Think of the Euros for football, but this is the Euros for cricket. It was really explaining to people that was coming up, and that strategy started 6 months in advance. And then we're now going to do the same thing with European Cricket League, which is the Champions League that starts in February, but the planning's underway so that, again, it's linking is what I call it. It's linking one game to the next. It's linking one series to the next, linking one year to the next now. So it's last year, before I was on site, there was a little bit of a disjointed nature to what we were doing. And so sometimes the people working on one series, they wouldn't be working on the next. And so something would happen in that series that would remind you of something last week. And all the viewers watched last week, but the commentators, for example, weren't watching as closely. And so it didn't have a consistent nature to it. So I think the benefit of me doing every single one this year, which is kind of the commitment I made, next year I'll step away now and then because the processes are in place. But that has been the real challenge for me, is to have a consistency about what we're doing, because even between one series to the next, okay, we'll finish on a Saturday night and we'll wrap, say, 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. Sunday, we'll be traveling to a new location. That might take all day. I won't probably get a chance to visit the venue. Monday morning, we're on again. So how to also, I get the information to me so that I seem like I know what I'm talking about on a Monday morning, when normally when you're commentating, you'd have time to research, you'd have time to do all these things, but you just don't have that time. And if I'm spending 10 hours on air a day, I probably don't want to go back to the hotel then study for another 3 hours. So that's also been training the commentators who come from more of a traditional commentary background. That look, this isn't like doing a one-day international or a football match on a Friday night where you can prepare for 4 days, because you're going to have to do 24 matches in a week and then roll around, and you have to keep your sanity as well. So there's certain skill set that I'm looking for in commentators, because that's also one of my jobs is to work out who I'm using as part of my team on air and off air. I'm looking for skills, for adaptability for people that aren't necessarily in the structure right now. I'm always on the lookout, and Rico is a really good example of that. Rico is one that doesn't have a commentary background, but he has all the skills that I'm looking for, and also to work as part of a team where we have to work closely together all the time. And you just want people that are going to fit nicely in the team environment, not just with me, but with everyone who's on tour, and so that we all have a good time together. That's also overall feel we're doing.
Sure. I mean, obviously, you spoke about it there about obviously bringing people into, commentary who don't have a commentary background. One of the major things that came out of the first edition of the European Cricket League was your nickname, Mr. Maximo. Do you want to explain how that sort of came about?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. So I have a background, and I've been probably hosting things, not so much in TV, but it's something that I've been doing for about 15 years, and not something I probably intended to get into. But over time, I had an events company and in Australia, and in conjunction with playing cricket, that had built up, and I had my own kind of unique style of what I was doing, and it included dressing in colourful suits. But even then, it's kind of being not crossing the line into full clown, but it's quirky. and it's quirky and it's
Yeah.
kind of memorable. So I won't wear absolutely anything. You know, there's a certain. I'm basically, well, I have created my own kind of brand in Australia, and then through then crossing over and doing some work in Europe, I got involved in this, and yeah, so Mr. Maximo came from my catchphrase Maximo, which was when a sixes hit, which was to do with trying to make the game a little bit Europeanized, or a little bit, it's probably a bit more of a Latin American thing. But I thought of in football, in some parts of the world where they really get enthusiastic and excited about it, they'll normally, when there's a goal, they'll be like, goal, for like a minute. And so you probably heard these kind of things because it was in Spain, the kind of Spanish tilt to it. And I know that they're very, very passionate about their football. I wanted to bring some of that element into cricket and do it slightly differently. So I was also acutely aware that I may really alienate maybe 20% of the audience, the real traditional cricket playing audience, your tea and scones in England kind of audience. I was aware of that. And you're always seeing this push and pull, even in England, with how the 100's been received and marketed. And it's this this establishment versus kind of new age funky push and pull, which to be honest has always been going on in cricket, not just recently. But if you look back at when one day cricket came in, when 2020 came in, it's always the end of the world. But basically, I think there's a Darwinistic kind of element to this, because whatever works will continue. So like this is the thing. And so, yeah, the Mr. Maximo nickname came from this catchphrase. And then I knew from hosting a lot of events with sporting clubs and trying to, and other skills such as trying to explain concepts that I'm an expert at to people that have no idea. I knew that there was a kind of strategy that we need to do with European Cricket League. Some of our viewers would be cricket experts, would watch all the time. Some of them wouldn't have watched cricket match before. So how can I manage both those two audiences? How can I be knowledgeable enough so that the established cricket playing audience trust me and credit me with knowing what I'm talking about, but also how can I explain it in a real simple way? And the Maximo thing was just a kind of a bit of a trademark. Which, I mean, originally I even look at how I do it now. I probably went pretty hard with it early. If you go back and listen in 2019, I'd like go on too long and maybe it was a bit irritating. But then part of that is my own feedback on myself now, because it's kind of established and people are on board with it, that it's kind of stuck around and people really like it. I think people like having these little things, these little trademarks. Rico's got his balle, balle, balle. And I think that's great as well. And also, you can't try too hard. I mean, I think my feedback on myself, 2019, obviously it's the first time I had done something at that scale. I mean, I think I was pretty well prepared for it through my other work that I'd done. But I think that it was, I look then, and I often say to people that I work with, the first day that we worked together, I said, look, this is the worst day you'll ever have. This is the worst you'll ever be on the first day. I said, I'm not saying you did bad, but I said, if it's not the worst day you ever do, then it's a problem, because it means you're not improving. So I think just having that awareness and to kind of take the ego out of it. So yeah, that the Maximo, then I didn't think of Mr. Maximo as a name. People just started calling me that, Mr. Maximo. And, people will often call me Maxi. Rico calls me Maxi. A lot of guys call me Maxi. When I'm signing autographs on occasion, and I have to sign Mr. Maximo, otherwise I'll be like, But I had, again, that was an overall strategy about how do I present this brand, which is in conjunction with our overall brand, because obviously when they came to me and they were happy that I was a good fit for what they were doing, and they wanted me to get more involved. They saw my enthusiasm for the project. It's about creating. They wanted the brand of European Cricket Network to embody all the things that I had created with my personal brand, looking at what I'd done before, because it's a kind of fun, but there's intelligence behind it. There's some, if we need to be serious, we can be serious. It's adaptable. It's kind of fast-paced and energetic and never lets up.
Sure.
So these are all things which are natural traits that I've got.
Yeah.
And so,
well, I was just going to say, sort of coming from that, from the fast-paced side of things. Obviously, you played, indoor cricket, or sort of all around Australia for West Australia and stuff like that. How much of sort of your experiences from that within the, the fast pace of it, and then also the cricket knowledge side of it? Obviously, how much do you bring into your day-to-day sort of commentary life?
Yeah, all the time. To be honest, all the time. And my own cricket career, I think, was hampered by the fact that I was working originally. I was working in the gaming industry, and I was working as a host, and there were some late nights, and I probably wasn't able to put so much into my cricket in my 20s that I maybe could have. And then in that time, I was a wicket keeper. Also, we had a lot of good wicket keepers in Western Australia. I was probably the number 4. Behind some players like Adam Gilchrist and Ryan Campbell and Luke Ronke. All of them played international cricket. I think I didn't realize how good I could have been at cricket until I stopped working for the big company I was working for. There was long hours, had my own company that kind of gave me a little bit more flexibility. And then, I really had the opportunity to play at the first grade level in Australia, which is kind of your premier cricket, as you call it in the UK. It's one level below first class. And I think, especially with only having 6 first-class sides in Australia, I got the opportunity to play with and against some really good players, some Test cricketers, first-class cricketers, and to play at some excellent facilities as well. So to keep to bowlers like Nathan Coulter-Nile, Jason Behrendorff. I mean, played cricket with Marcus Stoinis. David Willey was a teammate of mine, and rubbing shoulders with these guys and to see how they went about it. I think that it made me realize that there's a certain process to what they were doing, a certain professionalism. And not only do I take the cricket knowledge that I take away from that and being able to compete at that level, but also it's the same thing I do. So I'll have the same process of what I'm doing, whether it's right now the T20 World Cup's on. So our viewer numbers would be minuscule compared to what they normally are. Compared to a month ago, I was doing the final of the ECC, the Euros, between England and Belgium, and we probably had 50 million viewers. And so my processes stay the same. And just like if Marcus North or something is playing a first grade game against us, he's treating it the same as he treats a test match as far as what he's doing, and he respects all the opposition on the field the same because it's a good level of cricket. And I think that's what I've learned. Also, just like keeping your ego in check and staying true to who you are, because I think if you ever get too big for your boots with what you're doing, I think people pick up on that and they're always keen to kind of knock you down. It's a kind of media is the kind of thing when you're on show, until you get credibility or until you until you kind of gain the trust and get the audience on side, people are naturally wanting to knock you a little bit, saying, "Oh, who's this guy?" Or, for example, I never had Twitter. I never used it. I wasn't a big social media user. To be honest, I'm still not. But I think when I first did ECL, I'd created an account that I'd forgotten about. It had 6 followers, and it was like, "Who's this guy? There's only 6 followers. What's his right to be on commentary?" So these are things that don't really matter to me. But I mean, this is the nature. Everyone's different, and it's been fun now that I'm kind of established. I sometimes worry that you have to then remember that it's easy to pander to the 20% of the audience who always loves you, but you don't want to alienate everyone else that's just coming in. You want to make it open and invite everyone in to be a part of what we're doing. So I do also keep checking myself to explain what we're doing, to understand that not everyone is a regular viewer, and that it's something that we're constantly evolving, and we've got certain metrics. We've gone from we've kind of gone 2.5 times our YouTube subscribers from the start of the year, for example. Which is huge. I mean, we're at about 100,000 start of the year. Now we're up over 260, I think, 260,000, which is great. We've got over 1 million Facebook followers. So, I mean, it's always the thing that I enjoy most about it. It probably isn't even the on-air, the sound of hearing your own voice, because that's novelty that'll go away. But it's the challenge of there's such a challenge here. And it's like a Rubik's Cube. We're trying to work out the best way to do it. We're trying to solve problems all the time, which with my business background, I find really interesting. And because I'm a bit of an all-rounder, I love that aspect of it. And there's no template for what we're doing. So I think I just enjoy the fact that we're constantly improving. And if we're not, for example, if we have a series where I think things have gone backwards, I get a bit grumpy. Or if we, if the camera crew or the TV production guys aren't the guys we normally use that know what they're doing and then don't, I get a bit grumpy. Not personally, but I just get grumpy that I feel we're going backwards. So that for me is the real thing that gets me excited. It's the fact that like this task and my skills are perfectly a perfect match, and it's not often you find that in a job. So that's why I feel really, really lucky to be doing what I'm doing, and I never take that for granted.
Amazing. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. We could sit here and talk about European cricket for as long as we possibly could. But once again, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. And I look forward to the rest of the European cricket this year, and obviously the European Cricket League next year. Thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully I can broadcast one of your games again soon for your club, because I loved having you as a subject. So thanks so much, and I wish you all the best with what you're doing. And hopefully this has been useful for you. And thanks for sitting down and asking me to be involved. I'm very happy to.